The media has reported that the county, the 6 towns in our county, and the city of Charlotte are working together to pursue a 1% increase in our sales tax to help fund broader transportation and mobility solutions. But one element of our transit plans, the Silver Line East route that would run from our Gateway Center in Center City, Charlotte, through our southeastern communities in the city and in the county, and into the town of Matthews, which was originally conceived as bus rapid transit in the early 90s when we passed our half-cent sales tax, about a decade ago transitioned to a light rail service. But now we hear that it may be again transitioned back to a bus rapid transit system. The reaction to that has ranged from outrage to concern to the question, what is bus rapid transit or BRTS system? And so hopefully today we'll be able to answer some of those questions to help the people that would be served by that line and to give everyone a broader understanding of what BRTS is as an emerging solution to transportation. So our presentation today is going to be broken up into 2 parts. First, we'll hear from a subject matter expert from Miami, where they are installing a line that is very similar to the line we have ambitions for the Silver Line East route. That's a BRTS system. Next, we'll hear from a panel of developer experts who have done transit-oriented development, or TOD, both in Charlotte and elsewhere in the country, who will be able to react to what they've heard from our bus rapid transit speaker. As our regional transportation plan takes shape, making sure that an increase in our tax of 1% sales tax is fair for all, and particularly for the people that would be served by the Silver Line East route, is critical for the plan to be judged successful. So we appreciate your interest in the subject matters that we're discussing. As we transition to our first speaker, I want to let you know that you will be able to, through the chat feature, ask questions. And if time permits, Rob Nanfelt, the Executive Director for REBIC, will share those questions with us and for our speakers to talk about. So with me today is Ulyss Cleckley, who serves as Director and CEO of the Department of Transportation and Public Works for Miami-Dade County, the 15th largest public transportation system in the country. Ulyss was previously the Executive Director for the Department of Transportation Infrastructure for the City and County of Denver. And before that, he worked in other transportation roles, including work with the United States Department of Transportation as Deputy Director of the Houston-Galveston Area Metropolitan Planning Organization. Needless to say, he brings us a wealth of experience as it relates to transportation, and we appreciate him being here today from Miami. Ulyss, what really intrigues us and why you're here today is because of the extensive work you're doing associated with the South Dade Bus Rapid Transit System, or South Dade Transitway, I think you call it. Its history and the goals that you and the system want to achieve are remarkably similar to the ambitions we're hearing about for the Silver Line East route. So we'd appreciate you sharing some more information about the route.
Absolutely. And definitely I appreciate the opportunity to come and speak with you all here about this most important and innovative project. I know we have a slide deck that we'll put up, and I will get right into the presentation. Just by way of background, the South Dade Bus Rapid Transit, and this is an image of one of our 14 stations that we are actually building along this 20-mile corridor. It's a project that is very near and dear to our administration as well as our community in the Miami-Dade area. This is something that we have been working very hard and very diligently on as a department to make sure that we're delivering this project on time and on budget. And so next slide. So just background about the Department of Transportation and Public Works, just briefly. We are the largest transit agency within the state of Florida. We have about 80 million passengers annually that move across a variety of different modes that we have within the county. Our bus system comprises of about 70% of the overall ridership, but we do have a 25-mile elevated heavy rail system with 24 stations. We have the current South Dade Transitway system that I'll be getting into more details around. But in our downtown area, we actually have a 4.4-mile elevated rubber tire automated people mover system that connects commercial areas in downtown Miami. But also our department is responsible for roadways, 9,000 miles of roadways, 4,000 miles of sidewalks, and 201 bridges to include 2 causeways that are toll facilities that connect downtown Miami to parts going east, such as Key Biscayne and the like. So 15 largest public transit system in the country, and we continue to grow. And we are actually, from a ridership standpoint, fully recovered from our pre-pandemic levels. Next slide. The key point on this slide, not to get too Miami specific, but the fact that transportation is extremely important, in a way that we are going to grow our system is to address the lost time when it comes to congestion within the county. From an economic standpoint, when you're in delay due to traffic, you are impacting a region's economy. And for our region, we are experiencing $2.6 billion worth of lost economic activity due to the fact of our congested roadways. So the fact that we continue to experience migration to South Florida, that we've had a plan for 20+ years to expand our mass transit system, it is solely for the purpose to ensure that we keep up with the actual travel demands from our existing residents, and to ensure that our business community is one that is being fruitful in terms of moving their employees, but also reducing congestion, which leads to additional costs that economies have to bear. Next slide. So how we are doing this is through what we call our SMART program. I've been with the Department of Transportation and Public Works for a few years now, and this program actually transitioned from a plan. When I started, it was a lot of discussion around all of these 6 corridors that make up our SMART plan. And we made a concerted effort to get into implementation mode. So we're no longer in the planning phase. We are in the delivery phase of these particular corridors. Our SMART program is made up of 6 corridors. 5 of them are listed here. These are 5 active corridors that make up what is called our People's Transportation Plan, which was the plan that was adopted back in 2002 when the county approved a half-penny surtax to go towards expanding its mass transit system. Since 2002, for over 20 years, there's only been approximately 1 mile of mass transit that has been built. And that's because of all of the wranglings that have happened over the decades. And now we are at a point where we have our administration from the executive side, our legislative board, which is our Board of County Commissioners, as well as the department, really set up in a fashion to deliver and move forward with the expectations from all of these corridors. So we have a variety of different modes that make up our SMART program. And the one that we'll get into is the South Corridor or the South Dade BRT system. This is a full map of all of the lines that, as you can see, is connecting from a mass transit perspective, areas to the north, the west, as well as to the south areas of the county. And all of these locations throughout the county are the fastest growing neighborhoods and municipalities that we're experiencing here in Miami-Dade County. Next slide. So why are we doing this? And with a focus on ensuring that we're providing solid mass transit options for our residents, it's based off of the travel time that people are experiencing that's significant. The depiction of this particular map shows that in the darker shaded colors, the longer length of travel exists for people in the west, east, and northern part of the county, as compared to our residents that are traveling around in the center part of the county. All of the lines that you see are match up with our SMART program corridors, and regardless of the mode of transportation that we're choosing, this program is ensuring that we're provided connecting this for those neighborhoods that are experiencing the highest amount of travel time in the county. Next slide. So specifically for the South Corridor Bus Rapid Transit Project, this is a combination of revising our existing transitway where we actually own the right of way, and we are improving the transitway from a variety of different ways. One, we are building 14 what we call iconic bus rapid transit stations, and that's in addition to also providing local service along the transitway. I have pictures that I will show, as well as some video to indicate how the operation is going to occur at those 14 locations. But it's important to note that this system will significantly reduce the travel time for our residents that are living in the most southern part of the county. Right now, from Florida City, which is Southwest 344th Street, as you see on the map, those individuals are having to travel over 70 minutes to be able to get to our Dadeland South Metro Rail Station. Once they get off of current current bus system, they actually have to transfer onto our Metro Rail system to get to parts downtown. This BRT system will reduce the travel time by 40%, where those individuals will have approximately 45-minute travel time from Florida City to our Dadeland station, with 7.5 minute headways along this 20-mile corridor. So the travel time saving is significant. It is something that our community has been waiting on. It is very much like what you would see in a rail or light rail system, but with added flexibility to be able to add additional vehicles to be able to keep up with the future demand that we are projecting. Next slide. Our current ridership that we're projecting on this particular quarter is going to be approximately 14,000 boardings per day. We're projected to grow to 20,000 boardings per day. But the reason why those projections are so lofty is due to the fact of the increase in residential development that's happening along the corridor. On the left, in the northern part of Miami-Dade, we continue to see more development throughout the projected high-capacity mass transit corridors that we are projected to build over the next several years. But on the right, you see all of the existing and development that currently is in place to be able to help support the ridership numbers that I just mentioned. We continue to see increased demand for additional commercial as it relates to this particular project, as well as residential projects that will be coming along the South Dade corridor as we move forward. Our BRT system is not your grandfather's bus stop. These are stations, not bus stops. And the development community is recognizing that this is a unique, innovative, and a very innovative project that will spur additional development as we move forward over the next few years. This system is considered one of the top-rated systems within the country, and you will see that as I present to you imagery from some of our stations as well as the overall operations. Next slide. So this is an image of our BRT station. Again, it is not a bus stop. This is a station. This station comprises of a air-conditioned vestibule, which you see kind of in the left portion of this particular image. It has a canopy that has the ability to provide climate-controlled environment for our passengers as they wait for the bus. It has level boarding, as well as fare gates that control passenger flow into this particular station. All of our 14 BRT stations will look exactly like this, and they truly mimic what you would find at a light rail or heavy rail station as we move forward. That's why we are very much excited about this project. And as we begin to erect these stations, our community is feeling that this is a different project than perhaps what they anticipated it to be. 14 stations are across this 20-mile corridor, which we will be accepting the station starting next month, meaning that we will, at a batch rate of about 5 stations every 3 or so months over the next 12 months, we will be accepting all of these stations, meaning that we will be finalizing the construction phase of the project. And at this point in time, we are anticipating that we'll be in revenue service by the first part of 2025. Next slide. As backup, a lot of times we also focus in on just the BRT system itself and the stations that we are building, but we have supportive infrastructure that we are building as well. We have an intermodal facility that will provide greater connections to the existing elevated metro rail system that we have in Dadeland, but also we are building a $245 million innovative all battery electric bus operated maintenance and transit operations center in the southern part of the county. We actually have a piece of property that's 47 acres in the southern part of the county that was granted to the county from the Air Force Base that we are required to repurpose as an economic development project opportunity. And this was the property and the use that we decided to actually place this new transit operations center. This will allow for us to build a state-of-the-art facility. This is an image of that particular facility here. This will be able to house all of the vehicles that will provide the service along the South Dade Transitway, which we will have 100 60-foot articulated buses that will be all electric that will be operating the BRT service. And this will make the first time where we will have 20 miles worth of BRT, not only with the county, but there's no other BRT service that is of this length that's all battery electric operated in the country. So this facility will have 270 jobs associated with it that will provide not only the overall transit operational needs to support the BRT service, but also our maintenance crews will be operating out of this, and this will end up being our backup emergency operations center for our transit operations. So the reason why I've shown this slide in this particular project, we just had a groundbreaking 2 days ago with this particular project, and we are considering this as a part of the investment into the BRT system long term. Next slide. So as an example, I know there's quite a few interested parties in terms of the type of transit-oriented development, or what we call in Miami transit-oriented communities that get built along these BRT systems and what's being proposed. This is an example of a project that we actually have that's actually along our Metro Rail system that will mimic what we will be encouraging in terms of development along our BRT system in proximity to our 14 iconic stations. This developer has a 22-story tower with 312 residential units and ground level retail at our Douglas Road Metro Rail station. That's for phase one. We have ground level retail, which is a actual grocer called Millam's, which is a high-end grocer that is a part of this particular development. And this is just in phase one. Phase two, we're looking at a 37-story tower with 374 residential units, an additional 75,000 square feet of open space and commercial retail at the bottom level of this particular development. So we continue to work with our development community along all of our major mass transit corridors and locations to ensure that we're building transit-oriented communities and developments that mimic what you would see here at the link at Douglas. Next slide. And that's a quick overview of the BRT project. I do have another video that will show you the actual operation that our customers will experience, and you'll get a better feel for the user experience for our BRT system. We're excited about this project and the fact that we consider ourselves a leader here in Miami, and I believe that this can really be an opportunity for the Charlotte area and region to truly consider BRT as a true high-capacity transit mode, and we'll be able to satisfy the demands from all of the residents here within Charlotte. We're excited about our project. We're keeping this project on time and on budget, and our design builder has done an excellent job in moving forward with our stations and all of the supportive projects along the particular corridor. So I think what's up next is a presentation that will provide a video overview of the overall operations, and I'll be able to explain some of the details. In this particular, and as I pull this up, just to give some more detail, we, along all of the intersections along this particular corridor, actually have what is called signal preemption, as well as traffic signal priority. So we have upgraded our signal system to mimic what you would experience on a light rail corridor, where the vehicle itself, which will be our articulated 60-foot bus, will go through the intersections and will not have to stop at the particular lights during the peak periods. We also have gate arms that provide additional safety measures for the cross streets. So we remove any safety risks for the motoring public as this particular bus goes through these specific intersections. And the look and feel of the operation is very similar to what you would experience in a rail-like type of system. So this is, again, unique, one of a kind here in the country. And we worked with the Federal Highway Administration to install these gate arms as a part of this particular project. And this would be something that other BRT systems will be able to employ as they move forward. So I'll stop there. Maybe.
While we're working on the video.
Questions, yeah.
We do have a couple of questions if you want to go through those. First question was, how much faster was Miami able to expand their transit system by building BRT instead of fixed rail? Do you know? Do you have a
So going back to the fact that we've only expanded about a mile of our rail system. Once our Transportation Planning Board, which is the MPO, the Metropolitan Planning Organization for the county, settled in on a locally preferred alternative to be a bus rapid transit system, the county was able to accelerate identifying the proper funding from the state level as well as the federal government to move forward the project at a very quick pace. If there would have been another alternative mode that would have been akin to a light rail or rail type system, we would still be going through the planning phases at this particular point in time and still trying to figure out how to fund that specific project. So by choosing a bus rapid transit option, it really accelerated tremendously the time frame in implementing the project. And by doing so, we are considering BRT as a part of future corridors as an option to move quicker to be able to implement projects and get projects into the ground and get our services started to keep up with the pace of the demand from our residents.
All right. Well, we're having some. We'll get the technical difficulties handled with maybe we end on that. There's one other question that came in. If Miami had built the light rail system, would more? Did you have a projection for a number of riders with BRT versus light rail?
Right. During the analysis that determined the locally preferred alternative, that was one of the key factors, that the projected growth rate of ridership was not that much different than what we were projecting for our BRT system. And so when you're trying to leverage local dollars to get a federal share for the project, a strong consideration that's taken into account is the cost effectiveness of the overall project. When you're building a BRT system, it's about 20 to 25% of the overall cost for a light rail system. And so to measure the ridership that you are projecting with the overall cost, it just made more financial sense to go to that particular route, especially when you're having the same amount of headways that we're going to be experiencing that you would experience on a light rail system. Again, our BRT system during peak periods from 6 a.m. to 9 a.m. in the morning and 4 to 6 in the evening, our headways will be at 7.5 minutes. And that's very similar to what you would experience on a light rail system. As a point of note, every single year we do a update to our transit development plan, which is a requirement from the Florida Department of Transportation. As a part of updating that plan, we do a survey. And I can tell you that the survey responses that we get back, the top 3 things that our survey respondents tell us is that they want our mass transit system to run on time. That's about 90% of the responses. The next category of responses is that they want us to expand mass transit to other areas within the county. And the third highest response for what they're telling us that we need to focus on is to add frequency. So regardless of mode, those are the top 3 items that we get put on to our department from our community to say that we need to be working on this moving forward. And so that's why going through an analysis and figuring out what's the most cost-effective way to be able to actually deliver a project in the most expedient time is extremely important, because the individuals that end up taking our system really are agnostic to the mode. They want to make sure that the frequency is there, the reliability is there, and that it's taking them to where they need to go, whether it be places of employment or places of entertainment and the like.
So you got it queued up. Do you want to go ahead?
Very good. If you could press play. So this is the operation here, and we do have a voiceover and sound, but it's closed caption, and you can get an idea of how this system is going to operate. The bus right now, it's pulling into our iconic station here, and it is showing the customer experience as individuals are actually walking into our air conditioned vestibule that's down the center of this particular station. We have fare gates where our customers will be responsible for paying before they enter into the air conditioned vestibule, and they'll be able to wait on their particular bus in this particular area here. There's traveler related information on the screens that you see on the top of the entranceway to actually get to the platform. And as our customers enter the platform is level boarding, very similar to what you would experience in a rail type system. As you can see, our Metro Express bus, which is our 60-foot articulated battery electric operated bus, pulls up to the platform, and individuals walk out seamlessly and walk onto the bus. This experience again provides the similar type of experience that you would have in a light rail system. It will have very minimal dwell times for our bus operators as they're waiting for people to be able to board the bus. And as our customers board the bus, they leave the station. This is showing you the preemption phase of the signals. As the bus goes through the intersection, the gate arms that you will see once the signal is activated come down. They provide that, again, additional safety feature to be able to prevent cars from moving on the cross streets across the transit way. And this is all happening while the bus is moving. So the bus is not having to stop at the specific intersections, and they proceed through the intersection at the same rate of speed and move on to the next station. So this is called preemption, traffic signal preemption. So essentially preemption is allowing the bus to not stop at the intersection with these safety features. The roadway that you see to the right is actually a state roadway. It's US 1, which is one of our heavily traveled corridors throughout the county. And that's the video that shows the full operation and how our customers will be able to access our system.
So Euless, thank you for that. And it seems like there are so many similarities to what Charlotte is thinking about in terms of the Silver Line East route that it was originally envisioned as light rail. BRTS, Bus Rapid Transit, that term has been around for decades, and it means a lot of different things to a lot of people. For some people, it's the vision of a bus, the bus that they see on the roads today. What you're showing us is something that looks a whole lot better than that. What was the reaction in your community when they first learned this is what was envisioned for this particular route?
Right. As with most things, people were a little skeptical when you say bus or bus rapid transit. As we've started to go out and actually show the imagery and show the videos and have additional conversation and the structures have been erected, people's thought about what the project is has changed. And they realize that this is something that is not what perhaps that they thought, which unfortunately, sometimes people just think that it's just a little bit of an improved bus stop. These are truly stations, and that's why we call them BRT stations, because they operate as such. In our community, again, there was a sentiment originally that this corridor should have been a rail corridor. And as we've gone through and taken the time with our residents to explain the importance of moving forward quicker with this bus rapid transit option, we've been able to quell some of the concerns that people have had over the past several years. Again, I think it's a timing component that we have to balance. Just because people feel that rail might be the best modal option, that doesn't mean it's the one that's the most cost effective, nor is it the one that provides you with the greatest flexibility from an operational standpoint to meet the demands currently as well as what's projected in the future. What we call our system is really to be a gold standard bus rapid transit system. with all of these elements. We have 14 distinct elements that we're including in the design of our stations, as well as within our operational plan. And a gold standard BRT, which is somewhat subjective, but it does get evaluated. A gold standard BRT of this magnitude will not exist anywhere else in the country. So this will be a model that I think Charlotte can use, as well as other communities. If you're trying to build something that is the highest quality and providing the best service at the best cost for residents and the like, especially when you have a program like we have, where we have multiple corridors that we're trying to deliver over the next few years. So we have to figure out a way to balance our local funding source and be as competitive to go after federal dollars as well to deliver the entirety of the program. In most instances where you have a light rail corridor, especially one that's 20 miles like this, you end up, I would say, suppressing the opportunities that you have to expand to other areas of the county. And so it's a balance that you need to have financially, at the same time providing that same high quality service.
So gold standard, not something like this doesn't exist anywhere else in the country. It's less expensive. It's delivered faster, operates essentially the same travel times, same predictable travel times. Are other cities looking at going to this kind of a standard at this point for all those reasons?
Absolutely. So just for a little bit more context, we were able to leverage our local funding sources to receive federal funds through the Capital Investment Grant Program. That's the way communities actually build mass transit. Right now, 2/3 of the projects that are going through that program, which is a highly competitive program, 2/3 of those projects are BRT projects. And there's a reason why. One, in order for a community to be eligible for federal funds, the project gets rated. And the federal government will not approve or fund a project that is less than a medium rating. The South Day BRT project was rated at a high level, which means that there's different categories that the project gets rated from: overall cost effectiveness, the impact to ridership, things of that nature. And because of the fact that it costs less and you're having such high ridership and you're having the experience of the high frequency that we've mentioned, the project got rated high, so it was highly competitive. With 2/3 of those projects being BRT projects gives you an idea of how other communities are considering this as an option, as opposed to the high cost that you would experience for a light rail system.
I noticed your fare gate. You really have to pay before you can get into the station to board. I think that's one of the challenges or questions we've had here locally with our light rail system. You have a much higher assurance of paid fares. It's because you have to go through gate.
Correct.
To get there.
Correct. And that's very similar to how our Metro Rail system operates today, that you have to pay and you have to go to the fare gates in order to even gain access to get to the system, but also provides a level of safety and security for all of our passengers. We actually have CCT cameras that are installed at each one of our stations, and as a part of an added security measure, we will have station police officers. We have contracted police officers at each one of our individual stations to ensure the safety and security of our particular passengers. So again, the whole idea is to try to create a seamless system and try to be agnostic to the vehicle type, because the user experience is what is going to drive the usage over time.
So when you say vehicle type, when you talk about a public bus, it conjures up images, and we have a history of folks who might view a bus in a certain way, but that's evolving over time. How are buses changing in terms of design and those types of functional areas?
Yeah, as you saw through the imagery here, our buses, our 60-foot articulated bus is innovative, the most unique bus that the industry is producing at this point in time. The industry is going to design buses that are more environmentally friendly, whether it be zero emissions, whether it be CNG or battery electric bus designs, the way we have it here in Miami. And on the inside of the bus, where a lot of transit agencies have the ability to design the bus in a manner where you have all the comforts that you would want to experience for our passengers. And so we have bike racks on our particular buses. We have Wi-Fi throughout all of our bus fleet, as well as at our 14 iconic stations. And again, it goes to providing those comforts that our passengers want. The industry continues to manufacture buses in a manner to meet the demands from the general public. And every so often, you're going to see a greater innovation in bus fleets as we've been able to experience here in Miami. We have 800 buses that are part of our fleet in Miami. We have essentially phased out all of our diesel buses that are now we have about 20% of our bus fleet that are all electric bus, battery operated buses, and then a balance of our fleet are CNG buses and the like. The industry is also taking a look at other fuel alternatives, such as hydrogen fuel cell and the like, all for the purposes of having a more environmentally friendly and clean bus fleets that our communities can enjoy.
So you touched on a little bit the transit-oriented development or developers' interest along this busway. What are you seeing there as we get ready to transition to some of our developer experts' interest?
Absolutely.
Good in the line?
Absolutely. And there's a couple of things that we've done here in the county to actually encourage development along our transit corridors. We have a land use policy called the Rapid Transit Zone, RTZ. It actually provides incentives to development community to be able to add additional FAR along our specific 6 corridors. And so what we're seeing on this particular project is significant interest, not only from the residential unit product, but also the commercial product as well. And because in Miami, we have 34 municipalities in Miami-Dade County that are part of the overall county structure, we often work with our municipalities from a zoning perspective as we are looking to build our transit-oriented developments along the South Dade corridor. One of which where we're experiencing is a lot of our municipalities want direct access to the stations. And so in the image that I showed, we have our transitway, which is the dedicated right-of-way for our BRT system. We also have right adjacent to it, the US 1 state roadway. When there's development that's occurring across both the transitway and US 1, the desire from our municipal partners is actually provide a pedestrian bridge and connect directly to our BRT stations. So they're already seeing the value that those iconic stations would bring and figure out ways to provide that connectivity to future development along the corridor.
Very cool. So you really have been thoughtful about land use planning associated with these types of transportation investments.
And it's necessary to have that nexus between transportation and land use. That's how you're going to encourage people to not only take the system, but the ridership will be able to support the system moving forward from a financial standpoint. And again, that's an element that often gets evaluated from the Federal Transit Administration around the viability and the cost effectiveness and the long-term sustainability of a project. Is how well is the community tying land use and land use policies to the project that you're trying to build to be able to sustain its operation moving forward.
All works together.
Yeah, absolutely.
All works together. Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Stay
Appreciate
close.
that. Okay.
We get some questions. Now we're going to transition to the other part of this discussion this morning, and fortunate to have 3 gentlemen joining us, 2 here in the room and 1 virtually. To my left is a good friend. Clay Grubb is chairman and CEO of Grubb Properties. That's an organization that has grown and thrived under his leadership, where he started when he was 12. Active in the development of multifamily products throughout the United States, his firm is a national leader in making housing more accessible and affordable, and often is associated with transit-oriented development, including our Blue Line. To my second left is John Morris. He's a senior partner with Beacon Partners in Charlotte and has almost 3 decades of experience in the industry. He and his firm focus on the Carolinas and have developed a substantial portfolio of products, including a number of transit-oriented development projects along our Blue Line, our Charlotte light rail line. And joining us virtually is Campbell Smith, who is the market leader and senior managing director for Trammell Crow Corporation Charlotte, Raleigh, and Washington, D.C. offices, which develop throughout the Carolinas, Virginia, Maryland, and Washington, D.C. He also has a couple decades of experience developing across a wide range of product types, and I've enjoyed getting to know Campbell, working with him on the planning of the Iron District here in Charlotte. So let me start with you two, and Campbell, feel free to chime in as part of this discussion. What do you think about what you've seen?
I'm going to talk over Clay. I am fascinated by this because when we look at doing a project in a place, like South End, and we've done 3 in that area as that neighborhood is transformed, what you have to have is certainty. You have to have certainty of timing and funding. You got to know the mode of transportation is going to go and when it's going to happen. You've got to have certainty of location. And so where bus stops aren't great is, it's a bench and a covering and it can move, but you're talking about these iconic transit centers. I mean, those look as good or better than any of the light rail stops we've developed at Scaly Bark, Camden, Bland Street, where we put $100 million projects. And then the third thing that you touched on is the density of zoning. If you're gonna make a big investment, a 9-digit investment, you need density. So, like, what my question to you, Ulyss, is how did you get the cities, the county, the state, and the feds to line up behind this? You said you started this, Miami-Dade started this in 2000. Ned, you've been working on this for decades. How did you suddenly get everybody to line up? And in 6 years, you started this in 2019. 5-6 years later, you're going to implement a transit system. I mean, that's exciting. How do you get the government to line up to provide that first area of certainty of funding and timing?
So I would say leadership matters. That's the bottom line. And we were able, through our TPO, Transportation Planning Organization, to the chair at that time, Chair Steve Bovo. He essentially was the elected official that was able to gain consensus among the TPO board, as well as our 13 county commissioners, and ultimately all of the 34 municipalities.
Say that again, 34 municipalities.
And the consensus was built around the entirety of the plan. And to say that we need to stop talking and planning for projects and start to implement. So I always say that in order for a community to move aggressively, you have to have the consensus locally, and then you have to have the financial commitment, and you have to have the ability to deliver the project. You need those 3 fundamental things. But on top of that, you have to have the local elected official consensus. And these are, there's a lot of gnashing of teeth. So it's not, it's not without discussion. But once you have consensus in saying that this is the best project for us at this particular time, you have to have the executive branch and the legislative branch, and then the ability to deliver the project. So without that, if you have any one of those pillars that aren't on board, you're going to struggle. And what I think in Miami-Dade County we realize is if we continue to have these conversations around fighting around what mode, or fighting to say that this particular project needs to go first in my community versus another community, you're delaying the ability to implement, and these projects continue to increase in cost. So you end up getting in a position where you're having these types of conversations, and you may never ever build anything. And how is that helping out the transportation issues and challenges that you have in the community? So our elected officials really banded together and got consensus, and then from that standpoint, we've been able to demonstrate that we can deliver. And that's what the federal government wants to see as well.
Well, and that's where, I would like to brag on Charlotte a little bit, because, we invest in, across the nation, and Nashville and Raleigh are 2 very appealing markets to invest in. But we invest much more heavily in Charlotte, because the primary example being the fact that we originally put our sales tax in place before we actually had the plan. Raleigh, on the other instance, did 10 years of planning, never figured out the financial aspect, and they've got nothing to show for it. And they're going to have major problems. And so we are actually investing significantly less money in Raleigh today than we used to invest in Raleigh, specifically because they've been unable to move forward and actually start implementing. And so that's the importance of getting the sales tax in place, because Charlotte actually had money, or they had a plan. The federal government, as you mentioned, they want to know there's matching funds available before they're going to give you funds. And so I think, getting a sales tax implemented and increased and getting that capital flowing and getting people off the streets, and congestion. I love the fact that you showed the $2.6 billion annual cost of just congestion. I don't know if we have that number in Charlotte, but one of the things that we do and put a lot of energy behind is trying to get people out of cars. The average American spends over $10,000 a year on their car. Well, we house 6,000 folks that make a median income of $52,000 a year. They don't have to own a car. It's a significant change in economic trajectory and mobility. And so
Clay, when you think about the enthusiasm you just described and think about the blue line, what you've heard Euless describe and what the ambition would be for the Silver Line East route, is it something you would be enthusiastic about trying to do some TOD development?
absolutely. I mean, the first thing you want to know is that it's going to happen, and the fact that it can happen quicker and more efficient would absolutely be of high desire to us. I mean, we go where we can get people out of cars. I mean, the reason we can build a more accessible, more affordable product is today the most any one of our apartment communities parks is 0.75 cars per bedroom. Historically, that was 1.2 cars per bedroom. Well, I can charge a couple $100 less a month. It costs me over $30,000 per car to house a car. And
That's only going up.
yeah. And that's if you super efficient precast debt,
Right.
which you can't always do. And so it's significantly more. So anytime we can get people out of cars, it makes it much more cost effective for us to build our product, and we can provide a product that's much more accessible to people.
Campbell, how about your reaction?
So we have a lot of experience. We're a national developer and have a lot of experience across the country with transit-oriented development of all kinds. Metro, light rail, bus rapid transit. And I think we've seen the advantages, and there are a lot of advantages of bus rapid transit. And the other panelists hit on the primary one from a developer's and an investor standpoint is the certainty. I don't know why we do this as a job. Almost nothing is under your control. And certainty, particularly when working with government agencies and transit agencies, is a big unknown. The projects we do are all funded by institutional capital, pension funds, insurance companies, private equity, what have you. And if you can provide certainty of timing and check off those boxes of risk and uncertainty, that's what's going to get projects funded. And I've seen it locally in DC, and particularly so Montgomery County is an example, a big county close in to Washington, DC and Maryland, where they have struggled for the longest time to implement Metro rail and light rail. The Purple Line, the Corridor Cities Transitway are two examples. It takes a long time for anything to get approved in Montgomery County, but in particular transit. But to his credit, the county executive now, Mark Eldridge, really pushed bus rapid transit, and it's being implemented. Whereas the Purple Line took decades to plan, to purchase the right of way. It was very contentious, and it's kind of still not running in places. And the Corridor Cities Transitway is a light rail system that's just something that people have talked about for decades, and who knows when it'll ever be implemented. But so that is a big advantage. The other thing I'd say is in mixed use, urban type development, placemaking is a big thing. And honestly, you can create a better place, I think, with bus rapid transit, because The infrastructure is just less disruptive. It's less disruptive during construction. It's less disruptive after construction. And I'll give Tyson's Corner as an example. I mean, that's Metro Rail, so that's a big infrastructure improvement. But that thing, when they built that, I mean, it is almost the only thing you see in Tyson's Corner. It's like I joke, it's like we all bow down to the beast, which is the elevated Metro Rail line, and it dominates the landscape. And bus rapid transit can be a lot more flexible, less intrusive. We've talked about how less expensive it is, and you get kind of the same benefits. So personally, and our company's experience has been that there are a lot of advantages to the bus.
As a developer, you don't really care about whether it's on wheels or it's on rails. But it does need to be cool and artful. It's got to be something people want to be on. And I see your iconic stations, and that's a place you want to hang out. And you could make those all similar, so you know it's a BRT, or you could make them different based upon the neighborhood community, and could become a place of art where people want to go. How they get from one to the next is, as long as it's reliable, is irrelevant. And I just go back when I was talking to Ned, to you and Larry about this. It's about what can we get done? You know, you reminded me of Yoda when you're like, we tried and we tried and we tried. And it's like, no, there is no try. There do or do not. And with our legislature, which is similar to Florida, we're a conservative state at the state level. It's what can we get done? And it feels like we can get this done. It gets back to Campbell's point of certainty. And Clay, you played on that too.
Yeah, when I think there's no question when you take Copenhagen, where I've spent a lot of time, studying about biking, and because we put a lot of energy in getting people out of cars and bike being one, and almost 80% of the people bike in Copenhagen because it's faster, and people will just do whatever's more efficient. And so if getting on that rapid bus transit is faster and getting them to work quicker, get them where they want to go, that's what they're going to do. It's the same with hopping on a scooter, because they can get you right there quickly. It's all about efficiency. I mean, that is what 95% of humans are looking for. Even designing a college campus, they call them the cattle pass, where, you wait for where all the kids are going to cut through, because they're going to go the quickest route. Doesn't matter where you put the sidewalk. And so I think anything that you can implement quickly that gets people off the roads and to work faster and having more accessible, you're going to attract a lot of attention. I did love the discussion about, the ability to potentially have direct access. We just did that in Long Island City worked with the New York Metropolitan Transit Authority, and we're building a new access directly into the Queensboro station there. And that's super appealing, because people can actually get in and out without getting rained on.
Right.
And so to really think about how creative you can be, and Campbell's comment about you can probably even be more creative than you can with rail, because you've got more flexibility and it can be implemented faster. And, when he's talking about that, I said nightmares of Elizabeth Avenue getting dug up. And, yeah, and it was years in the making. And then 2008 hit, and we had all these plans. We actually had mobilized to build 1,500 space decks there. And then we killed all that. And now it's still, unfortunately, it's still kind of an embarrassment over there, because we haven't kicked it back up again. And so that momentum, I think, is just critical.
And I'd like to ask Campbell, because you've got the national experience. Because the the Camden station was there, we built a 15-story tower that we leased to USAA. And as part of that, we developed a county park, Wilmore Centennial Park. We're talking in Raleigh about connecting to a greenway, which is different, but it's a mode of transportation. There's one a quarter mile behind us here. And we worked with the city of Raleigh in a development agreement to build a bridge across a creek, because it was an amenity to our project. So I think when you get the right density around the rail station, there's the ability to have public-private partnerships where the developer and its investor are excited about partnering with the community, building parks, building bridges, building artful, cool things that enhance the city. Campbell, what have you seen around, maybe the investment and those sort of ancillary benefits? Can you touch on that?
Yeah, I think so. One example we've done in DC, and then I'll talk about Los Angeles. We did a project called Armature Works in DC, which is right. I mean, talk about multimodal transportation. It's on the main Amtrak Northeast Corridor. It's got Metro Rail. It's got commuter rail, bike trails, everything. But I mean, what really spurred on our development, and it's a 800,000 square foot mixed use project, is the promise of a future metro station and MARC rail station. And we then took that as an opportunity so that the city and WMATA were going to fund the station and bore under the main rail line to get to the station from our site. That spurred on our ability to build a large public retail plaza that we granted a public access easement in perpetuity. We have our retail surrounding it. It will at some point be a station. Now, interestingly, we talk about the challenges and uncertainty of funding for large rail projects. That piece of the station itself is still unfunded. But we built a large retail plaza and public plaza where we do farmers markets, retail, like all that kind of stuff that's very successful. So I think you can see that. We have a really large project in Los Angeles called District NoHo, which is a 2 million square foot multi-phase long-term project in North Hollywood. And it has all sorts of modes. Again, it's a metro station. It's got bus rapid transit on the Orange Line, which I do want to ask Ulyss if you did look at their ridership numbers. Interestingly, I think Los Angeles's experience, the Orange Line itself, which is bus rapid transit, they've talked forever about converting that to rail, because a lot of people perceive that rail can handle more people, and it's sort of the next evolution of their bus rapid transit. But I think their experience has been, especially coming out of COVID, that the bus rapid transit, for whatever reason, has some of the best ridership levels in their entire transit system in Los Angeles. And so I think, it speaks to some of those advantages. It's flexible. It can be faster. You can add capacity very easily to bus rapid transit where you can't necessarily to rail. So a lot of advantages. But that District NoHo project, there is a ton of open space, parks, plazas, in addition to the private development and all the retail and multifamily and office that we're doing there.
Ulyss, the word flexibility is coming up with each of these folks. Can you talk about, are there distinct advantages around flexibility that BRTS has that maybe other modes don't?
Absolutely. I mean, when you have a fixed rail system, keep in mind all of the supportive operational systems that come with that create challenges. Okay, so when we say flexibility, one, you can scale up and scale down based on the ridership needs. You can be a lot more flexible. We have, even on our Metro Express routes, that they'll be providing that 7.5 minute frequency at each one of the 14 stations. But it's a bus, right? There might be instances where we provide a operational plan that might not touch every single station, or it can provide greater integration with respect to our local routes as well for those particular platforms.
Around like events or rush hour.
Right, rush hour. So the flexibility that you have is greater. And I can tell you, running a rail system, the system component often gets misunderstood and not appreciated as much. The fact that you have to have so many things to go right, to always have the train not be disrupted by any system failure is a significant concern. And something that we try to manage on a consistent basis. You don't run into those issues when you're running a bus, especially when you have, a team that knows how to maintain the bus and keep the bus operational. It's rarely that you're going to experience a bunch of breakdowns, especially with the new fleet. So I think one, operational flexibility is there, the consistency of the operation is there. But when you have a fixed asset, especially if it's an asset that's going into mixed traffic of some sort. Just to have the ability to move around and navigate and do detours in a manner to maintain your headways is critical as well. And then in some systems, if like the one that was mentioned for LA, if there's the ability to expand to any other option, that's an opportunity as well. But operationally, these are things that we enjoy more than building in a massive, rail system that has to have the supporting infrastructure long term. That's always going to be cumbersome.
I was just gonna check with Rob, anything?
Questions. Couple are kind of touching on the same issue. This is probably for the developers. Do you see the same kind of economic development opportunities in East Charlotte with BRT versus light rail similar, or because of the flexibility enhanced? Can you speak to that a little bit? All three of you.
I'm happy to speak to that. I mean, I think there's no question that, one of the things is interesting that just, going to Elizabeth Avenue and hearing even Campbell's story in DC, and we're actually on Lankershim and NoHo as well, near District NoHo. But the nightmare of how long it takes to get these stations built. And that's kind of, I feel like our lesson learned is, we probably missed out on a lot of opportunity on South End because we were gun shy about, hey, when is it going to actually be operational? When is it going to open? We want to see that infrastructure in place now, as opposed to being penalized and a casualty of, what happens when you're trying to put it in place. And I don't think there's any question. I mean, people want to be where it's accessible to opportunity. And if you think about South End, my very first business meeting in Charlotte, I sat on those rail tracks in front of Price's Chicken Coop at a chicken sandwich. Little did I know that it was bone and all on the chicken that was sandwich. And never in my mind did I ever dream that we'd be investing in that neighborhood. And now it's like, arguably, I mean, it was at one point the fastest growing multifamily neighborhood in the world. And it is, I mean, to go there today and see the 30-story buildings going up is just mind blowing. And the reality is, where you've got access, you're going to attract folks that want to live there. And especially the folks that we go after, which are, typically not your highest earner. They're really your essential employees. And they're the ones driving your economy. They're your hospital employees. They're your teachers. They're, and those folks, they want to be at a safe, accessible place.
So when you talk about that, Euless, workforce housing and the thoughtfulness around the planning associated with this system or any of the other systems, was that part of the thinking for the land use planning that would be associated with your line?
Absolutely. We have two current projects going on now. One at our Caribbean Way location and one at a Quail Roost Drive location. Quail Roost is 100% workforce housing. And our Caribbean Way is 50% workforce housing. We've for a lot of our TODs, at a minimum, we're requiring 12.5% of the units to be dedicated to workforce housing. In fact, we're building one right across the street from our transit headquarters now, that will provide great access for our employees. But we're encouraging that, especially in a market like Miami, where that the housing costs have just skyrocketed over the past several years. And so it's critical that we are putting that type of investment into that different type of housing mix. And we want to see that more. We want to ensure that the product that's being built is one that can accommodate the diversity of users and families. And so our projects are going to be focused on that moving forward. And we're starting to experience that now along the BRT corridor.
And I'd love to, I'm going to pipe in because this is one of the things that, we've had a lot of discussion with, and I think planning staff here now fully appreciates, is that, the denser something is, the actually more expensive it is. And so that home, when you do a garden apartment, you can do it for, 150, 200,000. When you do an apartment with a structured parking deck in a dense area, you're talking about 350,000. When you go high rise, you're talking $500,000 per apartment. And so, one of the things that, I would love to see Charlotte look at is, hey, at these transit stations, the denser you go, the more incentives will give you in form of some type of, whether it's taxes or whatever. But I mean, density bonuses don't create density or they don't create affordability. What they're trying to do is make our housing more affordable. So the denser you can go and make that more affordable, the more you can get people out of cars, the more, just a better quality our community will have and be.
So Campbell, you touched on this a little bit. The lifeblood of the industry is equity and financing. What's y'all's sense of the appeal to that element of development as it relates to BRTS versus, say, a light rail project?
Yeah, again, I think it's all certainty. I don't think that equity would view one mode of transit really any different than the other. If you can prove up ridership, demand, then it's going to be, okay, will it be built, right? Because institutional equity is not one to take a leap of faith, right? They're going to want certainty.
Yeah, I mean, we just financed the Link Apartments Main Street here on the edge of South Bend, and it was really interesting. We only built 0.6 cars per bedroom as far as parking, and my finance guys were real concerned about what the market was going to do. But we had the data, and we had it was as easy to finance as any project we've ever done. And I think it really comes to, if you get that, if they know that station's getting built and it's going to be operational, I think the financing's there.
As you're looking at doing these projects, because we own 100 acres along the red line potentially, and we actually bought a 20-acre site that these are all industrial facilities now along the Silver Line going west, and we owned a piece of property over off of Monroe Road, but you want to know where the dot is going to go, and that dot is going to be fixed for decades. So if you can take your investment out of the dotted line between the big dots, if you cannot invest money in rail and put that into the station, and that station is more iconic, it's more artful, it's cool, then that gives you a fixed certain point to invest around. The communities need to plan that density as to how it's going to work. I mean, all of the projects that we work on now that are mixed use, thinking of two specifically in Raleigh, the one Scaly Bark Station, have an affordable component. And if you just tell me at the beginning that there's an affordable component and how it's going to work, we can finance around that. And there's better and worse way. I'd love to hear Campbell how y'all's experience nationally, but getting that fixed dot and investing in that in the station. The red or the silver or the whatever color, and that it's cool and that it will attract people. The dotted lines between those fixed points are less relevant. But as soon as I know where that dot is on the red line going north, the silver line going to the airport, down Independence Boulevard, then once the community determines, the municipality determines the zoning, then yes, the investment will absolutely follow, because that's where the people are going. Product follows people, and people will go to that fixed, cool, iconic dot. And those buses look like trains. I mean, you can make a bus look like anything. So that to me is almost irrelevant. The mode of transit and what happens between the stations.
Robin, you want to comment?
Yeah. Well, and at a point, I think that you mentioned art as well as I would say the supporting infrastructure such as trails to provide the access to the stations. And so if you noticed in the imagery as well as the video, right adjacent to our transitway, our BRT corridor is a trail. It's a bike path that we've actually received over the past 3 years, a state appropriation to do a study to upgrade that bike path, to provide more of an amenity space along the 20-mile corridor. Our district commissioner has been leading that particular effort. And we have something similar in Miami called the Underline, which is a very unique property that's underneath our elevated guideway that has been turned into a park and a bike trail, and it's turned into a placemaking type of particular project. So we're trying to take that concept and apply it to the trail right adjacent to the BRT, and again, providing that greater connection with other modes of transportation that would actually feed into the BRT system.
It's funny you say that. It's one of our most successful mixed-use projects in Dallas, Knox District, is along the Katy Trail, which is the bike and walking trail. And that's a great thing. That's a great point. You know, if you have the money, because you're saving the money on not building a massive rail system, you can do all these other cool things, which just enhance the community and the environment.
But and take the Beltline in Atlanta.
Right,
I mean,
exactly.
talk about a huge success.
And you think about, you mentioned,
And
Clay,
then for those that don't know, the Beltline is actually a trail, not a roadway.
Right.
it's along the
It's a
belt.
little confusing.
Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, and you talk about what South End was, eating that chicken sandwich at Price's in a just a bad area of town. I grew up a half a mile away from there.
That's why it was a bad area.
Exactly. But you know where these
Chicken was good.
where these dots are going to go, you know, those are vacant parking lots along Independence Boulevard. They're low density retail or struggling office parks. Once you put that dot there, the same transformation that happened around South End, that happened in NoDOT, will happen in those areas based upon how the municipality plans it, you know, in conjunction with the community, in conjunction with the private sector. So just to, again, talking about those dots for 20 years is very frustrating. Seeing that you were able to implement them in 5 and lining up 30 odd municipalities, a county, a conservative state government, so that you could get the matching funding from the feds is, again, it's exciting.
Yeah, I mean, it's a significant tide lifter for all ownership and all real estate, all the way down.
And the county tax rolls, the city tax rolls.
Rob, one more question.
Okay, one more question. And this, you may have covered this in your presentation, but for those of folks that joined us a little late, what other parts of the country, or maybe particularly the Southeast, are exploring bus rapid transit, and how is that going? I think Raleigh is set to break ground on some project maybe later this year or next year. Can you speak to that?
Right. They're right now, as I mentioned before, there are about 60 plus projects and the capital investment grant program from the feds that get federal dollars. About 2/3 of those projects are BRT type projects. And so you're seeing them all over from Raleigh to Austin. I know when I was in Houston, we had a BRT project on Post Oak Boulevard that was connecting the Galleria Mall. A lot of communities, especially mid-market communities, are using BRT projects as a way to not only spur development, but provide that type of connection from a mass transit standpoint. So to me, it's the way of the future.
And that's because they know they can get it done, right?
They know can get it done. The cost effectiveness, you can get it done. And it to the point earlier, the construction disruption typically is not as much. The right-of-way cost that you would need to have to actually deliver a project is not as high. And for most of these projects, the operator is a transit entity of some sort, which already operates a bus, right? So the operational component of this creates added value, as opposed to creating something brand new that you may not have had the experience operationally to be able to run.
We've got our rail bruises in Charlotte.
So,
Right. Yeah. And even, I mean, Campbell's example and your example, I mean, it doesn't, and even talking about the right of way, I mean, it doesn't foreclose the opportunity for evolution. I mean, hydrogen, a lot's going to change over the next 20, 30 years. So getting those right of ways bought, getting people out of cars, getting that density is going to lead to more and better solutions and a much higher quality of life. And so the faster we can do that, and just the better the community is and the more we're interested in investing in that community. Because I was talking about, Raleigh, Charlotte, Nashville. We purposely don't invest in Nashville because they have been unable to get any plan started. And we used to invest there. But, we don't see, whenever we make an investment, we're very focused on what's it going to be like 10 years from now, not a year or two from now, because we're not a merchant build. We actually build and hold everything that we build. And so we're laser focused on what's that quality of life going to be 10 years from now. And if you're not investing heavily into getting folks off of the highways, it's not going to be a desirable place to live.
Well, we started this conversation talking about the fact that we're hopeful that elected leadership and other leadership in our 7 municipalities, I shudder a bit at the thought of 34 municipalities, are hopefully working very hard together to try and bring forth a transportation plan associated with a 1% increase in our sales tax to help make the kind of investments that we've talked about here today. I'm going to ask the two gentlemen on my left that are Charlotteans, how do you feel about an increase in the tax of 1% if it means we can do some transformative things?
I would hope we would have implemented it yesterday. And the one thing, I remember Pat McCrory was the big champion for our sales tax initially. And one of the things that stuck with me was he talked about how over a third of the tax is paid from people that don't even live here. And so it's a way that it's a rare opportunity where a community actually gets tax dollars from folks that aren't exclusively sitting here versus property taxes. And property taxes can be, a really challenging tax, on how it's, how it's equity between folks. And, it's not always done equitably. And so sales tax to me is just a much, much more efficient way to generate income. So I'm 100% behind it.
Yeah, we were visionary and innovative, and Pat and Anthony, a bunch of people led the effort, with the blue line. So we know that it works. And yes, it's a tax. I don't like to pay taxes any more than anybody else does, but it's more an investment in our community. And you're investing in getting people off the roads because we need to build more roads. We need to improve our roads, but go to any large city where people are in migrating to that city and you cannot build roads fast enough. So we have to have alternatives. And once we put those stations on the map, we make those stations like bus stops are poor development. I would say our light rail stations are mediocre. Some are better than others, but they're sort of just platforms with a little bit of a cover. But you put an artful, air-conditioned, safe, station together, it's going to drive investment around it, which is going to increase the property tax rolls. It's got to be a multiple payback on the investment. And again, a third of it comes from people who don't live in Matthews and Charlotte and Mecklenburg County and the other 6 towns.
Well, and if you think about it from an investment standpoint, Charlotte has been very strategic. You look at, I think when John Belk was mayor, the emphasis he put on that airport because he realized, hey, that's the future of mobility. And we now have, this amazing airport that has really, really blessed us as a community and driven us economically. And then Pat McCrory put a lot of emphasis on getting this light rail rolling. And what it has done to transform this community is significant. And so to me, yeah, the cost of those fixed rail have, from what it was when we saw the initial budget, what it costs today is just astronomical. And so the fact that we can continue to enhance that system, that rider system, quicker is just, to me, that's what is game changing for the quality of the community.
Well, I want to thank you for viewing this forum and participating through your questions. I want to thank our panelists, all here in Campbell. Thank you for participating in this. And again, thank our hosts, Rebic and the Partnership of Regional Cooperation and the Charlotte Regional Business Alliance for their sponsorship of this event. Thank you all very so much. Appreciate it.
Thank
Good job,
you
Patty.
for, yeah, thank you for coming to